afternoon, Tigers. Today we'll be watching a video on Quizzette 725. Please make sure that you write your last name, comma, first name, today's date, and your class color. Today I'll say I'm green. Alright, so Tuesday number 1 says, what type of angles are the given angles? That's worded a little poorly. I made this Quizzette, so I apologize for the mistakes that you might see or notice. But what it's asking is, what type of angles do you see in number 2? And how would you figure them out is how you would know what type of angles they are. So 40 degrees is vertical to B. I know it's kind of hard to see that, but that's actually 40 degrees. You can write it on your paper if it's really blurry. And this is B, this is C, this is D, and over here is A. So the type of angles I see are vertical angles. Okay, and number 2, let's find the measure of the missing angles. So we know that 40 degrees is vertical to B, and vertical angles are congruent or equivalent or equal. So we can say that B equals 40 degrees, or you can just write it down here, 40 degrees. And I see a couple of straight lines. So, I see another vertical angle, 70 and D. So I can say D equals 70 degrees. Okay, now I'm going to highlight the straight line that I'm going to be focusing on. So the straight line that I'm going to be focusing on is this line right here. So this line. Each line is equivalent to 180 degrees. So we have 180 degrees right there. And now 70 degrees and 40 degrees is accounted for. 40 plus 70 is 110. So 110 degrees are already claimed for those two angles. Now these two angles are congruent, meaning they're equal. So you can call both of these X. Okay, you can just name them X. They're going to be equal. So you have two X's. So the way I would solve this I would subtract 180 because each straight line is 180 degrees. I'd subtract 110, and then I'd get 70. And then I'd divide it by 2 because I have two X's. And when you divide that by 2, you get 35. So each of those is equal to 35 degrees. Now you can use a definition of vertical angles to find what A is equal to and what C is equal to. So A is vertical to this X right here, which is 35. Okay, and D I already said was equivalent to 70 degrees. And C is vertical to X, which is 35 degrees. And there you go. The SMP I'm doing here is I'm looking for patterns every time I'm making use of structure. So you could easily do SMP 7 or SMP 6. Now let's move on to number 3. What is the area of this figure? So a lot of students got these questions wrong on the geometry interim that we took at the beginning of the unit, which was that practice state test that we took. There were 2 questions like this, and this is called a compound figure. And what you do is it's a figure that consists of 2 or more geometric shapes, and the way you solve it is you split it into parts and you find the area of the other parts and add the total areas together. So here I can make a line right here, and then you see this rectangle right here, and then you see the smaller rectangle right here. I could have also divided it this way. And then what you would see is this rectangle here and this thin rectangle on the bottom. So you would ignore that black line. Okay? So you can do it either way. Now, I'm going to always try to do the minimal amount of cuts. So I'm going to focus on the black one. This one right here. Okay, so I'm going to make it bold. All right, so I have this first section this first rectangle. And then I'm going to focus on this yellow rectangle right here. All right, so here it's telling me that, well, I have two side lengths. I have 8 yards, and then I have 3 yards. But I'm just looking at the length of 3 yards because obviously 8 means all of this length. And 3 is just this length right here for this smaller rectangle. So the area of this rectangle would be area equals length times width. Sorry, you can't see that. Area equals length times width. And here, my area is equal to 3 times 2, which is 6. Now, that's not my total area. That's just the rectangle. Now, let's look at the bigger rectangle. We have 5. And I'm not going to do 8 because 8 includes this side right here, and it includes this side over here. So I'm just going to use 5. Now, I could easily get confused and do 5 times 9, but 9 is just this part right here. It doesn't include the entire side of the rectangle. 11 does. So I would do 11 times 5 because area equals length times width, and that's 55. 55 is still not my answer. I have to add 55 and 6, and that's my total area of the compound figure. So area equals 55 plus 6 of the compound figure. So the area would be 61 of the compound figure. Now here you're making use of structure. You have a model with your math. You don't have to draw it. Well, you do have to draw it. You also have to persevere through problem solving. You have to attend to precision. So you can pretty much pick any of the SMPs for that one. You're not really arguing a point though, so I wouldn't pick SMP 3. Let's look at 4. If you took a slice out of a 3-dimensional shape, or out of the 3-dimensional shapes, what 2-dimensional shape would you have? So let's look at the sphere first. If I cut the sphere, what shape would I have? I would have a circle. Go ahead and write circle. And then if I cut a horizontal slice of the cone, these are both horizontal slice, so you can write horizontal. You need to know the difference between horizontal slice, which is this way, left to right, and a vertical slice would be up and down. So let's go back to the cone. If I were to slice that horizontally, it would also be a circle. The SMP here could be reasoning abstractly and quantitatively because you have to really think about it for some of these shapes. Like, for instance, 5, if you cut that pyramid horizontally, what shape would you have? Be very careful with that one. And then if you're looking at number 5 for Thursday, you also have to pay close attention to that one, and number 4. Now, for Thursday, number 3, I have a feeling you guys are going to have a lot of questions for this. Remember, you're trying to cut it at the least amount as possible. So here what I would do is I would probably cut it right here, and I'd probably cut it right here. And then I'd make my formulas. Area equals something times something, and then get the total area for that section. Then I do area equals length times width, and then I'd substitute those numbers, and then I'd get the total area. Same for here. Now be very careful. You could easily say, oh, this side right here is 11, but that's not true. Pay very close attention. I don't want to give you guys the answer. And then Friday, number 1, I have a feeling that's going to have a lot of questions. Just remember, if you're trying to find the missing angle measures based on their definition, these are going to be considered vertical angles. So for instance, this 110 is vertical to this shape right here, so they would be equal. So that'd be 100. I'm sorry, I said 110 and it's 112. And this angle is congruent to this angle, so by definition it would be that 112. Now that 112 is vertical to this one. So that's how you would figure out B. And then A and C, you would just subtract 180 from 112, and that would be the value of A and the value of C because they're vertical, so they're equal as well. Thank you, Tigers. I hope you do good on this Quizzette, and if you have any questions, please raise your hand or use your math notebook.